Hi, today you're going to be observing me lead a meeting for a 6th grade math team at Vivian Field Middle School, along with 2 math instructional coaches and an assistant principal. We will be looking and analyzing their Unit 2 unit assessment from the district, and we will be going through their data, possible test question analysis, errors, and misconceptions the students may have had. And through this process, you are going to see Principal Competency 2, Standard 2.8, Leading Learning, and that standard is monitors and ensures staff uses multiple forms of student data to inform instruction and intervention decisions to maximize instructional effectiveness and student achievement. Through this video, you will see 2 different components. The first is about 42 minutes long. That is the main data dig with everybody. Unfortunately, the end of the school day came because of some interruptions throughout that meeting. We did have to reconvene the meeting the following morning with myself and the 2 teachers to dive a little deeper into their reteach. While you're observing this video, I really would like for you to focus on how I effectively communicate the data, monitor, and use the data form to lead our discussion. You won't see this, but I'll be showing and demonstrating this on a screen that I'll be leading them through how to pull their own data in a new measure that kind of breaks down data a little bit more effectively for them as well. And then I am also very aware that there are multiple people in this meeting. And so I do ask individuals to share their thoughts and their expertise at certain points as well. I do feel it's very valuable that all people's opinions, voices, and experiences are heard. So you will see me explicitly ask certain people to share their thoughts on certain topics if I have felt like they have not shared enough of their own voice to that point. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you. Have a great day.
Welcome 6th grade and Mr. Jeff Lee, Ms. Wise, and Ms. Ramos. How are y'all doing today?
Good.
We're
Wow.
good.
Fantastic.
Thank y'all for joining me today in 6th grade to kind of dive into our Unit 2 assessment. We are going to begin at looking at our data for our on-level, and then we'll also transition to our honors. So if we want to pull up the assessment, we can go to our single test view and aware, your current year, grade 6. Subject math, and you're just gonna find your test there. And we're here with CFB 6 Math Unit 2 Operations Fractions. And we'll pull it up here. Okay. So I'm also going to pull up our data dig form that you have already put in your data ahead of time. So we're going to look at that and then talk about some of the detailed and specifics as well. So thank you for going in and entering your data ahead of time. We can see here, we have our on-level split and then our honors split as well, so we can analyze the two. Ms. Coronado, Ms. Anderson, do you guys want to speak to your overall data for on-level?
Honestly, I'm proud of it because for my on-level, I have, out of all my kids, I think like a third of them identify as SPED. So I'm very proud of the results because honestly, as I was grading them, they were really working hard. I could see exactly what the misconceptions were and where they were confused. But I mean, they worked really hard on it. So I'm really proud of the hard work they put in.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you can definitely see the work that we have done since the beginning of the year with guidance of our deans and our instructional math coach, that we have made great gains. In fact, when I looked at us compared to the district, we're #1 in the district as far as honors go, or not honors, I'm sorry, on level goes. And I think it has a lot to do with really planning the questions, the misconceptions, and knowing what to look for. So I'm proud. I'm really happy with what we see.
Monica, do you want to speak to the overall data compared to the district and within field?
I think a lot of things have come into play and why we have been more successful as well. I think the fact that we are all off at different times now and I can focus, or Shai can focus if I'm not here that day, or Iris can focus just on 6th grade, and we don't have 7th and 8th grade also in the room that require somebody to come around. I think that's made a huge difference in our ability to study and to really understand the math. What are the models we're gonna use? What are the hands-on materials we're gonna use as well? So yeah, I'm proud of you ladies as well.
Mr. Jeffrey, I know you're new to our data dig. Is there anything you would like to contribute to that initial, this is our does not meets category?
Correct.
Percentage approaches meets masters.
No, man, just looking at the students that don't meet, we're under 25%. So that's amazing. It says a lot about the work that our teachers put in. It says a lot about how our students are trying to achieve, that.
Teachers and students, please pardon this interruption. I want to take a quick minute to announce our very important Vikings of the Week. Remember, we give this award, damos este certificado, for students in recognition of their positive attitude, their grit, their trustworthiness and excellence in academics or citizenship. So for 6th grade, our winner this week is Isaiah Gonzalez, is nominated by Ms. LeCount. Our 7th grade winner, as nominated by Coach Yost, is Judah Davila. And our 8th grade winner, as nominated by Ms. Hausler, is Sadie Vasquez. So come on down, guys, for your treats and your picture and your name on the marquee. Congratulations.
Perfect. Alright, so we can go ahead and jump back into our on-level data. In our single test view, Ms. Ramos, do you want to kind of lead us through this view?
So in this view, this kind of gives you a breakdown of how many students scored, is it 13 items, right?
Yes.
13 questions, so
Mhm.
how many students, got one correct, and then so forth. So in the middle over there, that tells you how many scored approaches, and then the second tier is how many scored meets, and then that last tier is how many scored, masters, and that master's percentage.
And I do know, from the instructor side, you guys can identify by period as well. So we can, when we get down into our reteach categories, we can actually start to look at each period and how they differentiated, and their scores kind of differ from period to period, and what we might need to do to differentiate to address those concerns. We're gonna leave it general to look as a whole for just now, but we could also break it up by teacher. That leads us, if we're just looking at overall, we're gonna start to look at our readiness TEKS. And so we had 6.3E and 6.2D. We're gonna pause on honors. So if you go here in your aware data look and hit learning standard breakdown, you're gonna see where we fall. So that was 6.2E. And so we had a 78.57%, correct, which is really good for our readiness standard there. And I believe I said 6.3B?
6.3 is the readiness.
6.3E, thank you. And so we had a couple questions here. We had a DOK2 and a DOK1. Our DOK2 was, let me get back to that, where'd you go? A 41.73, and then that other question, DOK1, was a 39.29. And so we can look up those questions individually here in a moment, but let's just take a brief second to talk about that. So I see Coronado, you to speak to your 6.3E, and Anderson, y'all are actually identical here on level.
I think it's a huge testament to how deeply we have been planning. And like you said, that one-on-one with our coaches, because our planning time is not, we don't have to share our dean and our math specialists. I think that makes a big difference. And I also think that you can see, I mean, if our scores are identical, that tells you that what we're doing the same thing, we're doing consistently, and we're really planning out how we're going to teach, how we're going to change the lesson if needed, and then also what small groups to pull. And so I think that's really a positive thing.
And I do see that we identified this TEK as a whole group reteach, so we will talk a little bit about that in just a minute. But let's go ahead and look at those questions, shall we? And so for 6.2E,
If you look where it says item response analysis, yeah, there we go. Now, I wanna remind y'all real quick on what these colors mean. Remember last year we shared that the dark blue colors mean that those are the new item type questions, okay? The other ones were just all multiple choice.
Monica, do you wanna talk to us a little bit about that 6-2E?
Yes, so let's look at, the 6-2E, you can see is a pretty high bar. I really like this view a lot better than just going in and looking at just the raw data on Aware, because this really tells us a different story here. As math people, this really shows us, okay, wait a minute, question number 9 is way down there.
It's the same teak.
Right, it's the same exact teak. So what made that question different? So click on number 1, please. And then let's scroll down, and now we can see, it was just a basic fact question. So, okay, our kids got the skill down, okay? But what happened with number 9?
Mine is 6.
Mine.
Oh, it's 6-3E, sorry.
That's not the
Sorry,
same.
I can't see that far.
That's okay.
I can't see that
That's
far.
the only 6-2E.
That's the only
So,
6-2E.
Okay.
so they know how to
There you go.
compute, so it's good. And then the other one we said 6-3B.
Yeah, I feel like 6-3E is consistently,
Yeah, pretty much.
It's most of the.
it drops,
most of
number
the
7
tests
drops,
drop.
7 and 8
1,
drops.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 questions on 6-3E.
Question 9 is the lowest.
Okay, so let's start with number 2. It's a 6-3E, just kind of see where they are.
And we know this one was at 45% when it was all accumulated between all of those questions.
I think it's clear they either got it or they didn't, because if you look at the other answer choices, they're pretty even. There's not one that's significantly higher than the other. So they either understood it or they guessed.
Yeah, that's sitting
But
at
70% of that is nice.
Yeah.
It really is nice.
over 70%. Yeah. And then number 3 is around a 63%, give or take, roughly. Oh yeah, 59. So. So if, for the group of students that missed this one, what do you think was the reasoning behind it?
I think it's just their multiplication, just if they didn't correctly multiply.
Yeah, and we spent a lot of time talking about, is it reasonable? Does the estimate make sense? And so it's quite possible that many of the kids did use estimation, which was not a good strategy for this question, because if you look at B, C, and D, they're too close.
Right.
You know, you could immediately eliminate A. So
Which
my guess.
only 5%
Right.
selected A, so that's good. They
So,
did
but
use
if-
the strategy.
27% chose C or D. That's telling you that about a little less than a third probably estimated and then just guessed
Guess from there.
from their estimation.
But also another great celebration is almost 60% of our kids got this right.
Yes.
So there's really truly 5% that maybe didn't know, 27%, sorry, that 5 didn't make it, that didn't know what to do, you know, and that's a small number when you think about it, and manageable, very manageable. But also the one thing I noticed about this question, when you look at the other one, the number sentence was there on the first one. The number sentence is not here on this one, so they have to really think about what is the action of this problem. Is it supposed to be multiplication? Is it supposed to be division? Do I add? Do I say, what is actually happening in this problem? But the other one before that actually had the number sentence with it, so.
So I was just looking at this question with another teacher, and a lot of her kids picked C, and I was wondering if they just did 9.5 times 10, and then didn't follow through with the half times a half. So I would go through their.
Nova Ledesma, please come to the front office. Nova Ledesma, please come to the front office.
As you check their papers, I would look through their work and see how did they multiply this? What's the kind of strategies that you've got anchored? Were they using an area model, or were they using the algorithm?
Well, and that, I'm gonna make a note of that too, because what you said is very true. If you do 9.5 times 10, you're automatically gonna get 95, and that's an easy mental math problem. but understanding I'm not multiplying it by 10, it's 10 and a half, you know, it has to be greater than 95. So ultimately, there is only one answer if you use that kind of reasoning.
Right, right.
Well, and I will share with you, as I pulled up the other schools' data, everybody else's data is in the 40%.
Woohoo.
So again, you know,
Reason to celebrate.
yes.
Now we have we have a little jump here. So number 4, gave them a little bit more. It was a 2-answer choice. So we know those typically give our students a little bit harder of a time.
All over.
So which expression has a value of 3/4? Select the 2 correct answers. So it's a like they have to solve each solution.
Not only just solve, they also have to simplify.
Yep.
So that was an extra step for them to do as well.
I think we really need to spend some time on the do nows, because what we've noticed is students coming in from 5th grade, that's a skill they should have, even from 4th grade, right? Equivalent fractions that are in simplest form. And we just need to do a mini lesson on it, because even our honors kids are struggling with that concept, and that's something they should come in knowing. But this is here clear proof that.
So let's think about yesterday, when we took the cards out and we were playing the game. Could we take those same cards, have them make a fraction, and then say, is this fraction in simplest form first? And if it's not, what is its equivalent fraction? So that we're just kind of generating as they're turning over, and maybe do some sort of whose fraction is greatest war type thing. You turn over to, first find the equivalent, find if there's an equivalent, and then which one's greater.
And we can incorporate that, and this is gonna be a whole class reteach, so we can incorporate that into, the class activity component, where it's not just rote memorization worksheet, but they're applying it in a fun way, which typically brings our students up, because those are the kids we need to get manipulatives with.
I think another one would be like, just looking at how this question is worded, which expressions have a value. So, when you think about math, when you think about a 6th grader, they have to understand that what has a value is also, what is the solution to. And so if it's not worded like that in the things that they practice and what they see normally, when they see it on a test, that could be an area of concern where it's like, what do they mean by value? I'm not sure, which, again, you're thinking about a 6th grader who, if they see solution all the time and then they see value, that is different. And I only say that because you see that, or I saw that a lot as a geometry teacher, who would see certain things in class one way, but then their questioning would be worded differently. So just the language that you're presented with in math, it is different.
So I kind of almost want us to go back to how we used to do IIP way back in the day, way before you were around. Those of us that have been around a while. But what is the language that's on here, and how are we going to intentionally make sure we're using the word value in relationship to solution, in relationship to answer, so that they're seeing that, so it's not a surprise when it comes on, right? Right.
Evaluate.
Evaluate.
Evaluate the following, and that's another vocab that kind of goes in the same
Evaluate,
formula.
simplify, yes.
Right.
And then if we jump to 5, this one is our DOK2, but we sat pretty well. 67% got this one correct. So it'll be about 20 cases of paper from an office supply store. Each case costs $41.50, including tax. What was the total cost? So having to know they have to multiply, and then being able to multiply.
I would be curious to know, what kids would think is different between question 5 and question 3.
Alan Gonzalez, please come to the front office.
Your baby
Alan
still works
Gonzalez, please
10.5
come to the front office.
hours. Like, what would be the difference? Like, if we looked at one kid who got number 3 incorrect with number 5 correct, and we say, okay, what was different about these 2 questions to you? Is it the decimal? Is it the place value of that? Or just what happened? Because that's a significant difference in the number of the percentage that got this one correct versus question 3.
I would predict potentially it's the 41 versus the 950 and the answer choices. The other one had 3 answer choices that were very similar. So like I can see a student taking 2 times 41, that's 82, right? Add a 0, so 830, 820, kind of approximating there without doing anything with the 50 or the 1, just straight 40. Right off the bat, they can eliminate A, B, and D, because it's 83,000. So they could get close enough that they can, within reason, select C. The other one definitely has more of a mathematical, like, because of the answer choices that were given, they had to be able to go a little further in the math. Because we do, I mean, from 6th grade all the way through 8th grade here, but we do talk about like selecting the most reasonable. But I would like to look at a couple kids too and just kind of see on their, when they worked it out, did they do the reasoning or did they actually try to solve exactly?
Well, and strangely, I've noticed with these questions, a lot of students who are more advanced would pick D because they will take the time to actually multiply out the digits and they will get the answer that is in D, but not looking at the place value of the 2 things they're multiplying, so they assume that it's D and not C, and there goes that idea of reasonableness. Because a lot of honors students are like, I want the exact answer. I don't care about reasonableness, or even
They wanna
advanced
prove it.
on-level students. They wanna prove it with their work, but they have to look at where the placement is of the decimal.
Can you make a note of that so we can pull up some of our students and we'll look at question 5 compared to 3 and see kind of where we went.
Okay.
So on this one, so go over to the response, where it says response, and click on that. Down there above the student names, so you see Beatrice's name. Yeah, right, that column.
There you go.
That should sort it by by what they answered. So we could go through and we could see which exact kids did choose that one, sorry, and then go back and kind of, okay, who is it, what class are they in? Is there a pattern between these 2 type things? I wish we could download from this, but unfortunately, and print from it, but we can't.
When we pull individual class periods for y'all a little bit later, we can compare, because we can look at those question types really quickly. So you're looking at just maybe a couple of students from each class versus my cumulative list, it's a little bit harder to see that pattern. Right. Question 6, oh no, not question 6. Question 7. What is the value? So they have to simplify and then divide.
We were all over the place.
Yeah.
That's interesting that they picked A.
Did y'all identify this as one of your potentially most missed in our Q1 just because of the
Yes.
reducing and then division?
Well, what's interesting is when we talked about the misconceptions, we discussed how, they would probably pick the wrong answer because of simplifying, but so many of the kids, 30% picked A, and that's not a simplifying issue, that's a, I forgot to use reciprocal, or I didn't divide, I multiplied instead.
Yeah.
But that's pretty eye-opening, cause that tells me that 30% of the kids was not a simplification error, it was because they didn't understand the algorithm.
So did we have conversations also that technically in this problem, the strategy that would be best in this problem would be to divide straight across?
Right.
And I think maybe that's gonna need to be some of our next steps, is which strategy is
Works
best, which is the most reasonable strategy, which is the most efficient strategy that would work best on this, because these are the 3 different ways we can do it. Because we don't want them getting caught up in the forgetting to multiply by the reciprocal and thinking about that.
And going off of what Monica said, if we divide across and we just leaned on multiplying by the reciprocal, and you're already saying that students have a hard time simplifying, you're gonna have to simplify that to what, 24/30ths?
Yeah.
And so if kids don't know that, that's probably why the answers are all over the place, cause they just multiply by the reciprocal, they don't know how to simplify, but if they divide across, your answer is right there.
And that leads its way to decimals, because in decimals, how do we teach it? Make a common denominator, right, and then just divide straight across. And I think having that flexibility, understanding that yes, this is a possibility, or I could use reciprocal, is something that I think sixth graders tend to have struggle with. About when am I going to do this algorithm, when am I gonna use this method, and how do I know?
And I'd be interested to go back and see in STAR history, this particular just skill question. How often has it been to where dividing straight across is sufficient versus where they might have to multiply by the reciprocal?
We'll jump to 8, which is, we're really between A and C here. So 34% chose A as being
Wow.
correct, and 39% chose C. So we definitely wanna look at why A was a big misconception.
Well, if they chose A, they multiplied instead of divide. So they didn't fully understand that it was a division.
Reaction on the problem.
So they're saying I need 3/4 times 5 presents.
See, we should have had a lesson where we got out wrapping paper. But I'm serious though, like, we were talking about how the hamburger really helped. I mean, understanding, okay, what's really or even just give them like a piece of whatever paper. This is how much you have, but you have to wrap 5 equal sized presents. So what are you really doing?
Right.
You know, it's just that
Making it tangible.
they're not able to visualize what's happening, and so they assume it's either multiply or divide. I don't know which it is, so I'm gonna pick one or the other.
So
with
maybe
that-
that could be part of the reteach. Maybe
Just
one
took
day you
words
go,
out of my
"Oh,
mouth."
See why we work so well together? Let's get some wrapping paper.
I mean, we could even use the plain, paper. If you don't want to do, we can go fancy and get wrapping, but we can also just get the,
I'm the
Stock
master of
paper.
wrapping paper.
I have birthday paper, that's all I can contribute to.
Right,
is
and
birthday.
maybe you just cut off a slice of it, don't even worry about
Yeah.
what size it is, cut off a slice of it and say, here's your wrapping paper, you gotta wrap these 4 gifts, what are you gonna do? And did you multiply, or did you have to divide when you did it? And then, go from there.
I love how you're already thinking about how to make it tangible though, and not just like, let's practice the skill, let's help them understand what's happening. 9 was our lowest, so let's see what happened here.
I know
So-
what they did with this one. They struggled converting the 1 3/5 into a decimal, because as I was grading their work, I saw a lot of 1.35.
Same.
And that is a common misconception children have, but again, on this one,
Well, and I was gonna say too, Beatrice brought up the most like epiphany of ideas, of thoughts. I was like, oh, duh. So every day when we do our calendar math and we say today's the 34th day of school, what's our fraction? 34 over 100, what's our decimal? 0.334. So they probably look at that and they're like, oh, it's 1.3/5 because of how they rewrite it as when we're counting the 100th day of schools, they're translating it in a way that doesn't make sense, but does to them. So I think we really need to spend time on that. A lot of times we do spend more time on benchmark fractions, but based on the data, I mean, it's quite clear that.
so could we do something that I do now, or on one of those days when after you've done, today's the 35th day, maybe we talk about simplifying it.
And we've done that.
We put it as its decimal, and then maybe we take just a regular fraction and say, okay, I'm gonna tell you 3/5 is equal to 20 hundredths, or 2/10, or 6, I'm sorry, can't even do math right, 6/10. Why are these different? Why here could we just take the numerator and make it the digits within the decimal, but here we could not? And just have them have that conversation and compare the two, maybe hopefully with some repetitive of that conversation, maybe they'll finally see, oh, my denominator has to be a power of 10 in order to take the numerator and have it part of my decimal.
We could also potentially do like we're 1/3 through the school year, what percentage of the school year has passed? They could mean like something along those lines where we're still doing something with the days and taking it in from an actual fraction to like a decimal or something like that.
Yeah.
Something to play off of it.
Absolutely.
And our last question. This one we did. This was a lot going on here, but we did fairly well. for the most part.
48%?
Yeah, so we were around a little over 60% here.
Can we look at the second question? Lily ate 3 mini candy bars and Piper ate 4 mini candy bars. More students chose incorrect than chose correct. And you know what that falls on? They need to have a way to organize their thinking, because they probably got Lily and Piper mixed up,
Yeah.
the two characters in the problem.
Could have very easily,
Mhm.
right?
And there's those graphic organizers that we need to start bringing in. I mean, just a simple T-chart.
Right.
So scroll down to the students. So over there on the points, click on that points button. That also will tell us which kids got absolutely no points, 1 point and 2 points, to kind of help us see, you know, that's a lot of students who didn't get
Any points?
any points.
So with this type of problem, do they have to get like 3 right to get a point, or how would it work?
So in this type of problem, they would have to get 3 right to get 2 points.
Okay.
They have to get at least half of them to get 1 point. So in this case, since it's 3, they would have to get 2 correct to get. If it was 4, then they would have to get 2 correct. So to get 2 points, they have to get the whole thing. To get 1 point, they have to get half of it.
Okay.
So, but you can also see, this said, oh, never mind, this did not.
Something.
Because he got A2, but he chose wrong for B, and then he chose wrong for C. And he got 3 out of the 5. So because he didn't get that 4th one, he didn't get any credit. So these are questions that really do hurt us on STAR, because they have to do so well on this question and be able, like he talked about organizing their thinking. Even when we show them how to do the work in one box, sometimes that box isn't quite enough space, depending on how big they write. So maybe we give them that option. You could use 2, right? If you get a question like this, it's okay to use an extra box and ask for more paper. Those kinds of strategies, sometimes, not all students, but they could benefit from knowing they're allowed to go outside question 8's box. Because sometimes they get stuck in the, I can only go here, that one's for number 9. And so I would be curious to look at their work and see how many try to work and get out, but it got sloppy, it got, you know, mixed up in that box.
I also wonder sometimes on these questions, do kids get confused because some of them are multiple choice and I can only choose one? Is this just a, you know, not really paying attention to what's happening here? And did I answer the question?
Students, teachers, sorry for this interruption. Camila Escareño and Carlos Celoya. Camila Escareño, Carlos Celoya. To the main office, please.
Alright, so let's go ahead and fill in our template a little bit. We talked about discrepancies from teacher to teacher, and overall, we stated y'all were on
Pretty
point.
consistent, yeah.
So talking about the question types, Coronado, Anderson, did you always want to add in there specifically question 9, 5, and I believe we said 3, comparing 5 and 3, I believe is on our notes. And then 9 being the most missed, and looking at those individually. And please add in if I'm forgetting anything, ladies and gentlemen.
Missed. We can discuss the test questions that align with essential readiness TEKS.
So based off of our data for 6-3E, that is going to be our whole group reteach at a 45% mastery. So we talked about those questions in depth. I know we talked about a couple ideas. Let's spend some time thinking through how we would reteach that. So let's start with how did we teach that TEK, so we know what we did, and so we can evaluate what we might do differently.
What's a huge TEK? So for the dividing, we did the Play-Doh, and show them how to divide with that. And then for multiplying, we did the brownie model. And then for dividing decimals, we show them how to convert it into fractions.
Common denominators,
Thank you. I was like,
Play-Doh for dividing.
for dividing fractions. And then we use the brownie model for multiplying fractions. And then
Pizza model for dividing fractions, also.
oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
The cheese.
Cutting the cheese.
Adding, cutting the cheese, just so we remember what that is.
Just to make me happy.
Of course.
Uh-huh.
And then we divided decimals by creating equivalent denominators.
Equivalent fractions with,
Yes.
or that's fine, with common denominators.
Yes, there you go. Much better.
One, I think we also need to add in there that, wait a second.
Camila Escareño, Carlos Celoya, please come to the main office. Teachers, make sure you read the email from Dr. Ramos.
Sorry, our Teams is down, so we
Yes.
can't access where the students are. So that's why we are interrupting class constantly today.
The other thing that I wanna say helped us also be successful on this, and what y'all did do is your anchors of learning that you created. Not only, you didn't just put up there how to do something, you took the Play-Doh activity that we did, and you actually made that your anchor by showing here are our hamburger pieces, right? How we did all of that. So let's continue looking at what is an example from our curriculum that we did in class, and that's what we're gonna anchor that learning to get up there. Cause I think that meant something to the kids, right? That really said, oh yeah, I remember that activity type thing. So those anchors of learning that you're creating and connecting it back to the lessons that we've done are gonna make a difference.
I think you were also very strategic in the problems that you chose for them to work on during independent work. So instead of making sure that they completed the entire problem, you chose specific items that you wanted them to work on. So I think that also contributed to the success that students had on this test.
So let's shift our brain a little bit, and now let's think about ways that we can potentially address those misconceptions, reteach this TEAC in particularly, and help bring those students to mastery. They did very well on our One Readiness, so we want to keep that, but we want to go ahead and start to shift those other 40, I think we have 45%, so 55% of those students towards mastery on the TEAC. And it is a big TEAC, right? So let's find some levers we definitely want to pull that will also transition and help relate to the next unit.
Since it's such a big TEAC, should we focus like one problem or like one activity like on each like operation? How Caroline was saying, like we can bring in the wrapping paper, and that'd be like one question for dividing fractions. And then trying to think what else. Like that could be a good activity because it'd be hands-on, and then we can give them each. We don't get wrapping paper. This could be their wrapping paper. Because I like that idea.
Because like, do we really need to do add and subtract, or are we just doing multiply and divide? Because that's mainly how it's tested.
I would focus on just multiply and divide, because even if you're looking at an area model as one of the models on how to multiply, you're still gonna get the practice of the adding in there. But I don't think we need to stop and teach the adding and teach the the subtracting. Maybe just embed it through the models that we're using as we continue through.
Yes, and I like how Beatrice said we should probably use something that's like familiar, that tactile. So I do like the wrapping paper for multiplying.
dividing.
Yes, the wrapping paper for dividing, we need to come up with an idea for multiplying, and I think the other two things, what I was looking at the data was, number one, we need to teach them how to estimate and find reasonableness, cause like you said, if I just multiply it by 10, I get this, but I know I'm multiplying it by more than 10, so it should be more than this. And if they can use that reasoning, they've got the answer. You know, just understanding that if I estimate, that's not gonna be the answer choice. It's gonna be a little bit more than the answer choice, or a little bit less than the answer choice. I also think that we need to teach them a strategy. A, could we divide directly across? Because clearly they're not seeing the connection. And then also, simplifying, just how can I create an equivalent fraction? I think those three things would make the difference between approaches and needs.
Well, and we have our numerical fluency that we're doing every day. Could that be a component of our numerical fluency, just to simplify? Be a component of our numerical fluency for a little bit, and then
I
walk
think it
away
needs
and then
to
come
be,
back and
yeah.
bring it back a little bit type thing. Because again, that's still practicing the scaling up and scaling down idea. That's going to be important as you continue on through 6th grade and through 7th grade and
Right.
through 8th grade. So.
And I know 7th grade, they really focus on estimate and reasoning. And so if we are really focused on that with 6th grade, it's only gonna benefit them these 2 years with all the calculator.
Right.
So if we can start to teach those testing strategies, particularly for math, like we're stuck, we don't know, let's get close, and then let's shift from there.
I'm wondering if you're dividing fractions, what if, like, you know how we have different strategies for dividing fractions, we have, dividing across, multiplying by the reciprocal, what else is there?
Converting to decimals.
Converting, right? So I wonder if we could show some students, just random equations, and then they kind of pick, like, which of these strategies would be best for
I
this
do not
time?
know why these parents will not
That
pull
way
up
they kind of
and they
stop
walk
and think about
the street.
what to do instead of just going to everybody. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like,
Because ultimately, that's the goal. Like, they need to have the flexibility. Because when we talk about multiplying by the reciprocal, my goodness, how much simplifying do you need to do? When if you just divide it straight across, it'd be so much more efficient. And I think that's the key word. Can you find the most efficient way?
which one of these, which one would be best for this, these numbers? you
Well,
know?
and I'm gonna say the easiest.
Yeah.
Which of these strategies that we have is the easiest to do on this problem? That's the one we wanna use.
Well, I'm really curious to see like how it's been tested. Like for this one, it was easy to divide just straight across. So I'm curious to see if that's the same for STAR, or do they need to simplify?
Right.
Oh yeah, we need to look at lead forward. I think there's probably instances of both.
So if they don't need to simplify, I think on STAR, I think if it's a text entry, they don't need to simplify because I think STAR takes into account all the correct answers.
That's
right.
good to know.
But if it's a multiple choice,
Then they
they have to simplify depending on what the answer choices are.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and even if let's say it was 1/2 was the final answer, STAR would also take 5/10.
Or 50 hundredths.
Right.
Okay.
Anything equivalent to half.
So the question in 2025 that was just straight, what is the value of 8/18 divided by 6/12? But even again, the idea of simplifying, if it was 8/18 divided by 1/2, now again, that's just dividing straight across. So this did lend itself to the idea of dividing straight across. Because think about it, if they did the reciprocal of that, and then they multiplied 12 times 8, and then they multiplied 8 times 6, and they try to simplify it, yeah, they're not getting this right.
Yeah.
And if you think, so state-wise, I don't know what we did on this, and I don't mind going and pulling that later, but state-wise, only 35% of our students got this right. And is that because we're going to the multiply by the reciprocal based on, what are these, I know this is kind of funny to say, but what are these numbers saying to you?
Yeah.
That 6/12 tells me to simplify that to 1/2 because 1/2 is a lot easier to work with than 6/12.
We're gonna pause here. I know you'll have tutoring, so we'll pick up here tomorrow and kind of dive in deeper into our goals, okay?
Okay. Sounds good.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you ladies for meeting with me today to pick up where we left off yesterday, of course. We were talking about our readiness standard the 6-3E that we needed to do our whole group read each. And you both identified a couple major areas, the way misconceptions in terms of multiplying and dividing, potentially using tactile components to connect, like dividing using the wrapping paper. Still not sure what we want to do with multiplication. Estimate and reasoning in terms of questioning strategies, and then can we divide directly across, reciprocal, decimals, and really focusing on what is the easiest to do on this problem, right? So we can know all three. And then obviously simplifying with numerical fluency. So let's talk a little bit about how we would go about teaching this. Ideally, it would be a class period or less, so we don't want to have it roll into 2 days if possible. But we do want to take a moment to identify misconceptions, focus on major foundational items that are going to need this upcoming unit, and then give them a way to do a mini reassessment, whether that's an exit ticket to make sure they're moving forward, right? We are moving them towards mastery. So what are our thoughts on that?
I think we definitely need to spend a day, and I like how you suggested stations. So we'll have 3 different stations for our 3 major misconceptions. I think one is going to be the idea of using the tactile wrapping paper, and I like that because that's going to help them understand. It doesn't explicitly say divide, but now going through the steps with actual paper, I can see that I'm dividing. And then we can talk moves about why is it dividing, why is our answer, greater than what we started with.
I know.
And then also coming up with, well, how does that relate to the algorithm? Because they already know the algorithm, but I think generally it was, I just didn't know what to do based on the words that I was reading, is the major misconception. Not necessarily the math, just
Reading the word.
what is the problem telling me to do?
So thinking about that word problem, how can we use an elementary skill like visualization to help them plan through that problem without even seeing the problem yet?
Well, we could draw a picture and say, okay, here's my wrapping paper without actually having physically in our hands, and we can say we're gonna share this wrapping paper to 5 presents, so what are we doing? And the hope is for kids to say, oh, well, you're gonna cut it up into pieces to use it for each present. Okay, if I'm cutting it up, that means we're dividing, because you're sharing it out equally into those 5 groups of presents.
And correct me, I think it was a test question. I'll have to go back in just a moment, or it could have been something from our instruction. Wasn't there one about a lab as well? Like a science teacher with baking soda?
Yes, and that's the idea too. It may have been, I've seen them with baking, but it's like, how many 1/4, and this goes back to the hamburgers, how many 1/4 pound hamburgers can I make from 3 pounds? And so for the kids to understand, and this is a huge misconception, oh, the 1/4 is written first in the problem, but that's not what you're committing into smaller pieces. It's the whatever 3 pounds that you're starting with. So understanding too, that just because a fraction or a value comes first doesn't mean that that's the number you need to write first in the expression or the equation.
So if we're looking at visualization and we want them to visualize before they do, what would be those steps?
I think just draw a picture of what's happening. I mean,
What are you doing as the teacher? And what are they doing? Let's talk teacher moves real quick. So we have let's pretend we frame it to be Miss Smith's class. One of our teachers most will recognize. Miss Smith is doing a science experiment. She has blank baking soda boxes, right? What did I do as a teacher?
Like, what do you
I would have them draw 5 boxes, or how many boxes they have, right?
Good, have them draw it,
Mhm.
but I didn't show them the question.
just
You just
say
say
it.
it.
Or
Yeah.
verbally
Oh,
say it.
like
Just
just
verbally say
say
it,
it.
because when
Uh-huh.
we show them the question, they start to read too far,
Oh.
try to solve.
Mhm.
So with the visualization, which they do in elementary, the teachers don't show the question.
Okay.
They just, the teacher sees it in the notes or whatever,
Uh-huh.
they read a chunk at a time.
Oh,
Miss
okay.
Smith has 2 baking soda boxes.
Mhm.
Okay. I want you to think about it. What do you see?
Mhm.
Okay. Draw what you see. Now they draw 2 boxes. And this could be a misconception with our kids too. We did the Play-Doh, we did the tactiles, but on the test they didn't have Play-Doh.
Mhm.
They didn't have tactiles. So let's put it back into their hands.
Mhm.
They read it, they think about it, and then they draw the boxes. So now, some may have done that, some maybe were like, well, I don't know how to do this because now I don't have my Play-Doh, right? So let's show them they can just draw a box.
Okay.
And then it might say each student has to use 2/3 baking soda. So then what does that mean? Same with idea with Play-Doh. They have to do what with the box of baking soda?
Cut it up, break it apart.
Break it up into the denominator, right? So we need 3 of them. Okay, so if each student needs 2/3, talk with your partner now. How do we find out? Bring the Play-Doh back
Mhm.
into the test question, make it relevant with our teacher, but then let's have them peer collaborate that very end piece to discuss how they got there. And then maybe we have them move into that same concept, but say we have 15 students, right? How many boxes could I, or would I need, or how many students could I support, or something like that. And so showing them how to organize their data, right? And if it's not a perfect number by 2, what does that mean? And so having them start to think through, well, 1 box only supported 1 student, so I could only for sure have 1 more because I only have a little piece left and that's not enough for a lab. And so walking them through that thought process, but without showing them the question,
Mhm.
then let's bring up the question
Okay.
and show them, you just did this.
Mhm.
So slow down, chunk it, what do you know,
Mhm.
break it down. And I think that would really help connect that Play-Doh more so when they don't have the tactile.
Okay.
Mhm.
Right, so we said brownie pan, visualization, we talked about stations, the numerical fluency for simplifying. Is there anything else we're looking, so we're looking at like 3 major stations.
Mhm.
And we might just call it rotations versus stations, because
Mhm.
you're gonna lead them, right? So
Yeah.
we're gonna do, this is rotation 1, we're focusing on vocation and division. So I just don't want the kids to think they're gonna go on their own, because we definitely
Yeah.
want to keep it consistent. Is there anything on here that we want to BTC? Is there one of these that we could start off with BTC?
I would say maybe the brownie pan.
Mhm. Cause that's really easy for a teacher to see,
Mhm.
you know, from the center of the classroom, got it, oh, here's this misconception.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that we need to see. And also, we need to talk about, okay, we see the model, but how does that relate to the actual factors that we're multiplying? What's really happening? What's happening to our product? You know, is it greater or less? And I think that's really important too, and that goes back to the estimation. Is it greater than the dividend we started with? No. Okay, so interesting. Or why is my product greater than what I started with? Or why is it smaller than what I started with? But just being able to understand that relationship.
Right, so as you guys start to build through your actual reteach lesson, I want you to think through what would be easily BTC. I'm seeing maybe even 2 things on here, even what we just talked about, the visualization. Could be, right, like letting them talk about what am I hearing, what do I see, how can I draw this? What can we put them in the board so you can quickly see and address misconceptions, especially with a reteach. And a component where we want to make sure we are moving with a little bit of urgency, but also catching any concerns and having students peer tutor and help bring them up as well. What would we like to do in terms of reassessing or seeing are they mastering? How do we want to determine if they're going to master that standard now, those concepts?
I say to do like an aware like mini assessment, because that would give us the data and then give them obviously paper for them to write on, and then that way we can actually see like
And
what
that's
are
a
they
quick way to-
thinking and everything.
Mhm.
And so what kind of questions would you want on that mini assessment?
I would say like a dividing question that doesn't give them the actual expression, where they have to really think about, okay, am I gonna divide? What is my dividend? And just really pay attention to what is it that we're taking and we're trying to break apart. And then with multiplication, also a word problem. And then
Ooh, and understanding that of is telling me to multiply a word if I'm taking 3/4 of something. Because that was, I noticed that yesterday with the kids, Miss, I don't get what of is. And so that's important. I think, for sure, having one where they have to visualize, for sure, one where they have to make the brownie pan. And I honestly think we need to have one where they have to simplify the solution. Or could we do a division and a multiplication where they have to simplify? So we could do 2 where they don't have to simplify and use the model, and then 2 where they do have to simplify and the model is a choice.
but are we gonna spend time during our reteach showing them how to simplify? Cause I thought we were gonna do it as numerical fluency.
That's what
So
I
when
think.
I saw that, I assumed we were gonna do it like on our do now spiral.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I would spiral
okay.
the simplifying,
Yeah.
focus on that for about a week,
Mhm.
and then maybe throw in an exit ticket at the end of the week.
Okay.
And use that as your
Okay.
intentional monitoring
Okay.
to see like, are they getting it? Do I need to pull a small group? And so that kind of leaves our last piece here where you guys will work on this and then we'll come back a little bit next week to identify your students who actually need small groups. So anybody who was a did not meets or approaches low, we want to make sure that we are inviting them to tutoring, doing some small group, maybe even in that BTC class, we're kind of checking in with them, probing them a little bit more. And then make sure, this is what we as teachers sometimes forget about, our master students, right? You're gonna have a couple in every class. So what can we do to get them to practice something, whether that's gonna be some of those dice games, those, same concepts, but in a more fun way. And we can have them actually small group out in our small group area, rather than forcing them to just do additional problems. And you're gonna have to look at that work a little bit for somebody who mastered,
Right.
and determine like, do they need support on this one, or should they really have that like free time to explore math in a fun way? So that would be the last piece I leave with y'all as you start to plan your reteach in depth.
Okay.
Since it is a whole class, it is gonna be majority of your class. But if you had a kid who scored like a 96 or 100, right? Like they got everything. We wanna make sure we are pushing them and extending that learning.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, ladies, I will touch base with y'all later on this evening to kind of gauge if y'all need anything for me, for your support in terms of your reteach. I know we're looking at maybe Monday, Tuesday. So I know you said you have a ton of wrapping paper, but
Yes.
if you need
I'll
anything, okay.
Okay, it might actually be in storage, but
Okay.
I'll check.
I have some birthday wrapping paper, so
I mean, hey, paper's paper.
we can do wrapping paper or the paper from up front, but just let me know kind of where y'all are.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, thank you.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
sounds good, thanks.